What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy, Storyteller Jet, with another episode of the That's So Fire Talk Show. If you have ever tried to get a loan for a real estate deal and heard the word no from a bank, this episode is for you. If you want to flip houses, build rentals, or scale a portfolio but you don't know how to actually finance it, this episode is for you. My guest today has been in the lending and financing industry for over 15 years. He started as a bank teller. Yes, you heard that right, a bank teller, and worked his way up to managing over 1,000 underwriters for one of the largest mortgage companies in the country. He knows this business from both sides, sales and operations from start to finish. And after COVID hit and forced him to pivot, he partnered with Prosper Firm and became their chief lending officer, where he has since managed millions in closed loans and built a sales team from the ground up. He just made the move from Pittsburgh to Tampa about a month ago. And something tells me this city has no idea what just arrived. Obviously, we have, Mike Evans already in Tampa Bay. This is probably going to be the best Mike Evans, okay? So, DSF family, help me welcome the Chief Lending Officer of Prosper Firm, Mike Evans. Let's go. How's it going, man?
Hey, appreciate it. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to, having you guys on the show here. I think we met, like 3 or 4 weeks ago at the Brain Social?
Yep.
And you guys were fantastic. You basically sponsored the whole event.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool meeting
time.
you guys.
Yeah.
Really great time.
It's awesome.
Yeah, shout out to my boy Vega. What's going on, Vega? He's the one that puts the Brain Social together.
Yeah, it's a great event.
Awesome. How have you liked Tampa so far?
I'm not going back. I'll tell you that. The sun shines every day. It rained, I think, one time since I got here. So it's absolutely amazing. The people, the development, just all the things to do. 20 minutes away from the beach, and I love the beach. So I absolutely love it here.
Yeah, let me ask you this. How many times have you been in the beach so far?
Once. I just haven't had enough time. I'm really looking forward to going back. I think I'm trying to go this weekend, but we'll see. It's just busy time,
We're going there tomorrow. So
right, well, maybe I'll join you.
Yeah. So that was the number one thing that I said that I was going to do from moving from Ohio to Tampa. We used to live literally 10 minutes away from the beach.
Right.
And I used to say, man, I'm going to spend so much time at the beach. I'm going to go there like almost every weekend. And after like 5 years of living here in the beautiful Florida sunshine, and obviously we have the number one beach here.
Right.
I probably went 2 times.
Yeah, I know.
2 times. But I think last year during the summer, me and my wife took our kids there. The whole family went there, and it was a blast.
Yeah.
Like, we really enjoyed it, and we want to make that more of a priority to kind of go and enjoy the resources that we have here.
Right. I'm going to try to do the same, but, the weekend rolls around. Sometimes you're just like, I don't feel like driving, even though it's really close.
Yeah.
Just go by the pool or just hang out or whatever. But, yeah, it's great beaches down here, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So from bank teller to managing 1,000 underwriters, walk us through that journey. How does that happen?
Yeah, well, I was in the gym one day at college. I was 18 or 19 years old, and my friend said, hey, you want to come work for the bank? And I was like, sure. I had no idea what a check was, how credit cards even worked, went all through training, and I was like, what do you mean you get to spend money on a card that you don't have that you pay back later? I don't get that. It took me like 3 weeks to really understand it. So I was working at a bank part-time while I was in college, and then I was in college for about 3 years, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I switched major after major. I was in like psychology and then like the physical therapy and then some other random majors. And I was 3 years in and I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And my aunt at the time, well, not at the time, she is my aunt, but at the time she was working at the college that I went to. And she was like, yeah, if you want to switch now, you're probably going to have to be here for like another 3 more years. Wow. And I was like, I still don't know what I want to do. And, I'm the baby of 3 older sisters, and all of my older sisters are successful and they're in their careers. And, one's a cancer research scientist for, out in Boston. The other one's a teacher. The other one's just, does different things back then that was already successful. And I was like, I don't want to be the loser of the family that doesn't do anything with their life. So that was my main goal is I didn't want to finish college because I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just didn't feel like it was the right place for me to be. But I was already working in banking. I was already seeing the routes that I can go and where I can move up. So I told myself, if I'm going to drop out of college, I'm actually going to pursue, the banking, financing world and make something of myself, hopefully. So I just had that mindset of I need to find different routes. And then I found different sales positions. I went into mortgage and then, got out of sales and started to learn the operations of it. Got into just a lower tier operations role, then said, how can I get to the next team lead role? Then how can I get to a managing role? And then I found myself just managing a very large group of different individuals. And it was just, blessed to be able to be in that position.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. By the way, I have 3 daughters, and I've been trying to tell my wife that we should try for the 4th so we can get a boy. I love my girls, but can I call her later and tell her that's possible?
Yeah, tell her it could be, you have a 50-50 chance. You never know.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you ended up not graduating in college, from what I'm understanding right now. Yeah. So what would you tell people that are going through college and do not know what they want to do? What advice would you give them?
I would say try to figure out what you want to do in life as best as you can. But when you're 18, 19 years old, especially guys, we don't really have it all figured out yet, unless you have some really good direction in your life. And I didn't really have that great of direction to where I wanted to go, and I was told, hey, you should probably just go to the military, because I wasn't that good in high school either. I was a B, C student, mostly a C student. And, everyone around me was like, you probably shouldn't go to school. And then I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to go to school anyway. I did good. I just didn't know what I was going for. So if you know what you want to do in life, or you have some people that are around you that can help guide you, I think education can be great. But if you have no idea what you want to do, and you're like me, I was an entrepreneur at heart from birth, I think. I just didn't know what entrepreneurship was until I later became one. And I just, I think if you don't really understand the route that you want to go and you don't have the direction in life, then I think it could be a waste of time, or it can be an extreme benefit to you. I think education is important, but also self-education is incredibly important. But I would just say, try to get around people that love you, that care about you, that are in life where you want to be. That's one of the most important things. If you have people around you, that are in life where you want to be, I would listen to those people. If somebody has a college degree and they're not where you want to be 20 years from now, may not be the best person to take advice from. But if somebody has a college degree that's where you want to be, maybe listen to them. Maybe education is for you, but maybe it's not.
Yeah. This is a controversial take. A lot of people say that college is a waste of money. What would you tell those people, or the people that do not want to go to college at all? For that, obviously you've been very successful for not completing college, but for the people that says that college is a waste of money, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I would say college can be a waste of money because doctors and those kind of people, we want them to be educated. So I think those people should go to college, get very educated, because if I'm dying, I want to trust a very educated doctor to save my life.
So you don't want a doctor that learned medicine through books and self-help to help you? Is that what you're telling me?
Correct. I don't want that kind of person. I want an educated person. Like lawyers, I want a very educated lawyer that went through a lot of schooling. So I think college can be a waste of time. I don't know what the statistic is, but there's so many people that go through college and even they get degrees, and then they end up not getting careers or jobs in that field that they got a degree in. Or some people like me, where you just go just because that's the thing to do. I think it's become so mainstream that you just go to school, you get a good education, you get a good job. That was like my parents. If you can go to school and get an education, you made it. Now college is so expensive. There's so many things you can go for that just isn't going to translate into a career. So I think if you're 18 years old, you're 17, 18 years old, and you're thinking about going to college, I would, as best you can, think about, the 5 years after college, the 10 years after college. Is that really where you want to be? And really kind of consider that whether you're actually going to go or not, because it can be very expensive, right? You can get a skilled trade, if you're an HVAC or electrician. As AI is getting more popular nowadays, AI can't come and replace your furnace. AI can't come and rewire your entire studio or your house. You need a person to do that. So those kind of skilled trades are becoming less and less used in the country, and which is then making it more valuable. So if I were to go back and I were to go, the school route or a trade route, I would 100% go a trade route, because it's becoming so much more valuable today, and you can get paid a lot of money for doing those kind of jobs, and it doesn't require a ton of education. So I would just really, really get a good grasp as to what it is you want to do with that degree, and like what's the meaning behind that degree. And if it doesn't have that meaning, then I would try to find another way that's going to make you the most amount of money with the least amount of education.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like the perfect example of that too. Like I did graduate college, but I went there, I think for 5 years, and my major was in finance and
Extra
accounting.
lap.
Yeah, extra lap. Like, I was doing my honors thesis, and I basically took that extra years to finish it,
Yeah.
which is how I got my first F. Because they told me, hey, you can take as long as you want to finish the thesis. And one day I received an email saying, hey, we flunked you because you taking too long and you never got it done.
Yeah, there's an expiration on it.
Expiration that I did not know of.
Yeah, right.
But right now I'm in media. I'm doing a podcast, but never did anything with my I did work in finance for like 5 years, and I was an underwriter and kind of doing all this fun stuff.
Yep.
But I never really, for the past 10 years, I've not done anything finance related.
That's a lot of people, unfortunately, that happens. I mean, some people become successful in their degree, which is fantastic, like more power to you, but some people just don't.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long were you bank teller for?
I was a teller for probably like a year or so, maybe like a year and a half. And I realized very quickly that I just did not, I needed to move, because that was like the entry level position. I learned what I needed to learn, and I was ready to start scaling up.
Yeah. So a lot of people, they're like stuck at their level. They never wants to kind of try other things. But you decided to, move from being a bank teller to move into the sales and operations side and, learn different skill set to help you grow. For anybody that may be stuck right now that don't want to try anything new, what would you tell them?
I would say, take an assessment of your life and say, am I happy with where I'm at? Because if you're happy with where you're at, then stay happy. Like stay with what you're doing. But if you want to get into something else, but you don't know how to do it and you're stuck, I would go back to find people that are living what you want to do and replicate and duplicate those people. And that's what I did whenever I was a bank teller and then just did, regular loan sales or it was checking accounts, selling credit cards. And I got really, really good at that. And then my my mortgage loan officer, she would just come and go into our branch, take some applications, and she would just go home. And I saw like the car that she drove, and I was like, she has to be making some really good money. And I asked her one day, I was like, okay, off the record, like how well are you doing? Like, you don't have to tell me numbers, but and she told me, since 2001, I was making this much, and my jaw just dropped. I was like, are you kidding me? And, she was like, she just came in for a meeting with a client at 9 a.m. And then she was like, I'm going home, and it's 11. I was like, you just get to go home? And she's like, yeah, I'm a loan officer. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to run. Now, little did I know that she does a lot more work than just, 2 hours of meeting a day.
Yeah.
But I saw somebody and I just sought her out and said, hey, can you teach me? And she took me under her wing for 6 months and then another 6 months of training. And then boom, I found myself in mortgage sales.
Yeah. So how important for you to have the right mentor that you can learn from?
Absolutely. One of the most important things that you can do in life is to have a mentor. Always, I always kind of go back to my my college days. I used to be a bodybuilder, right? I did some collegiate bodybuilding competitions, and I loved working out with my lifting partner. His name's Chris, because he was bigger than me. He was stronger than me, and he just knew more about lifting and nutrition than me. And it was just such a push and pull for me to become better, to become bigger, to become stronger, to become more knowledgeable. So he was my mentor, and that just helped me grow from, being this skinny kid to, gaining, 20, 30 pounds of muscle. So, and then translating that into the business world, I met some amazing mentors that I had when I was 19, 20 years old, and I would not be where I am today without those people. So absolutely life-changing to have the right mentor in your life.
Absolutely. So I was told this morning that you're going to the gym tonight. My wife told me, "Hey, yep, you're going to the gym tonight. What advice would you give me if I want to go to the gym and start building muscles and become the next bodybuilder over here?"
I would say the biggest thing, if you want, I mean, it all depends on if you want to like gain muscle, because it's really difficult to gain muscle and lose fat unless you've for me, it'd be really hard to do that because I have to be in like one stage or the other because I've already built up enough muscle. I have to go into a fat loss stage or I have to go into like a surplus stage. So, but one of the best, pieces of advice that I can say is regardless of wherever you're at, I would do, full body workouts. This is just what I would recommend for like a base level. Obviously there's different programs, but I'd say train 3 days a week, stick to full body workouts, especially if you're busy. Hit 1 gram of protein per pound in body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, you should be getting about 200 grams of protein. And then if you're trying to gain weight / gain muscle, eat in a 500 calorie surplus. And if you're trying to lose weight, eat in a 500 calorie deficit. There's different ways that you can figure that out. You can go to tdeecalculator.net, I think. Shows you what your maintenance calories are. So if your maintenance calories are 2,500, 3,000 is a surplus, 2,000 is a deficit. The deficit helps you lose fat, maintain your muscle. The surplus helps you, you'll gain some fat a little bit, but as long as you're eating enough protein and eating clean, you should be, gaining the muscle and not getting too much fat.
That was fire, baby. That was awesome. Thank you that's a huge share.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I definitely would. We watch that again later and kind of, that's a masterclass right there.
Yep.
That's incredible. So what was the biggest lesson that you've learned from managing over 1,000 underwriters?
Oh, great question. I would say people skills. People skills are one of the best, skills that I learned in my entire life. And that's from reading books, listening to success audio tapes, having the right mentors and different mentors throughout my life. Because when you're working with and kind of responsible for and managing so much, and especially people, people are great, but people are also, they can, really take a hit on your mental health and just drain you sometimes. Even though people, give you energy, sometimes it just takes energy away. Even if you're just giving so much and just in love and just, really helping people, even in that, if someone's not really yelling at you or whatever, even just giving and doing good things, it's draining, right? So really understanding and knowing how to work with people is probably one of the best skill sets that I've learned, because that's what most of business and life is working with people.
Yeah. If somebody wants to develop that skill set, to learn how to work with people and what would you tell them? What are some of the things that they can do to develop their people skills?
To level up your people skills, I think one of the best things to do is success books. That's just one of the best ways to learn how to not only talk to people, but to get people to like you. You're not manipulating people, but you're really digging down into the depths of actually how to make relationships with people. And then another thing that will just really help you appreciate people is sales jobs. The door-to-door, cold call. You will get rejected 98% of the time, and you'll have some success. But that rejection, growing up in the network marketing era, when I was 19, that's when I met my business partner, Brandon. He was 21 or 22. I was 19 years old, still in college. And that kind of a business really taught me so much about myself, so much people skills. And a lot of that was through rejection, base level, you build a team, you sell a product or a service, and you have to be able to get people to build that team, right? So in order to build that team, you go through a lot of rejection. You're getting the door slammed in your face a lot. So, learning how to deal with rejection ultimately will help you learn how to deal with people, because you appreciate the people, that don't just slam the door in your face.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Let's expand on that a little bit. For people that are afraid of rejection, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
2 things: action and attitude. The 2 things that you can control in this life is when I wake up and I put my pants on, if I stub my toe, is that going to ruin my day? Or am I just going to have a smile on? I'm just going to have a better day. So your attitude, you can't control anything that anybody does. I can't control you. I can't control anybody that I walk outside this door. If somebody has a reaction towards me, that's not my fault. That's their fault, right? The only thing that I can control is the way that I respond. to that and the way that I feel about myself and I feel about other people. Second thing is action. You know, the only other thing that you can control is what you can do. You can't control what somebody else does. You can only control what you do.
I absolutely love that. That's fantastic advice there. So you were doing all this stuff, managing, 1,000 underwriters and, living the business life. And then COVID hits.
Yep.
You got laid off. Most people would have folded.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind and what did you do next?
Honestly, it was a really tough time, not only because of just COVID hitting and just really, some people know this, if they have a house or are trying to buy a house, rates were in the 3s or whatever they were, and then they just shot up to, 5, 6, 7, 8%, I think I got up to at some point. And, we thought that the market wasn't going to hit us, but then it did. And then just layoffs were imminent. Thousands and thousands of people within different mortgage companies were getting laid off. And then that year, I bought 2 houses, and I got diagnosed with what we thought was terminal cancer that year.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm fine now, but I had a softball size mass that was growing on my lat muscle. And long story short, they came back and said, yeah, you have cancer. And then thankfully, a week later, I found out that it wasn't. It was just a bone tissue growth that was growing on my lat muscle. So I had a really, really rough year. But actually, so that all happened, and then I got laid off from my job 2 weeks later.
That is insane, man.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm trying to work and do things, but my doctor, I have cancer. I can't do anything. So, but then after they told me I was fine and everything's gonna be okay, they took it out. Just got a nice little scar to prove it, and that's it. And they were like, yeah, you're good. Chances are it could grow back, but most likely it's just going to be a bone growth again and you'll be fine. And I was just so thankful to just be alive at that point, man. Just the gratitude was just pouring over me like crazy. But then 2 weeks later, I got laid off. I said, hey, I'm back to work. I'm ready to go. And they were like, cool. And then just kicked the can. So I'll be honest with you. I threw a little bit of a pity party for myself for a while because, I had everything going for me and then everything just came crashing down. And I was like, what on earth am I doing? What's happening to me? And I realized, hey, bad things happen to good things. Bad things happen to bad people. Bad things happen to good people. Or bad things happen to bad. Bad things happen to good. I just hit my knees one day and I said, God, if there's going to be more, I'm willing to go through it. I read the story of Job. I understand what happens, but I know that there's more trials and tribulations that I can go through. But I know that you're going to pull me out of this at some point. This is the worst I've ever felt in my entire life, and I believe that you're going to pull me out. And shortly after, that's when I got hooked up with my business partner, and he was things just worked out to where I can come and work with him, and I had to make it work. I had to, because if I didn't, then I would have lost my home. I would have missed my car payments. Probably would have got repoed. So and then my life just completely turned around from there for the better.
But all of it happened when you hit your knees to the ground and surrendered everything to God and kind of say, hey, I want to be part of your plan, not my plan. Show me the way and doing all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you got hit with the news that you had cancer and you lost your job.
Yeah.
Obviously, you said that you threw a pity party for you. And I feel like that's probably the biggest thing that a lot of people are dealing with is their mental capacity during those hard times. How did you handle all of that? Going through all of those hardship, how did you make sure that you step out of that funk zone, so to speak, to get back to, the saddle?
It was for a little while that I was just down in the dumps. I was trying to get another job or figure out what I was doing, but I felt so horrible about myself. And I think, a lot of people that are, in the success world, they say I went from this to this, but they don't talk about these moments where they just really are, just like anybody else that's going through something bad. I went through 6 months of that where I just didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. And that's okay. It's okay to feel like that, but it's not okay to stay like that. You're allowed to feel those emotions because it's a real thing, but you have to at some point pull yourself out of that. And I think it was just when I hit my knees one night, I was like, I need to figure something out. My finances are just going to ruin. I have this credit card debt. I need to pull myself out of it. And then it was just a mental shift for me. It was a like no plan B mentality. Whatever that story is, where the captain or general of the army says burn the ships, and like we're going. If we lose, we die. We can't retreat. And it was, for me, it was more of a forced no plan B, because I had no other option. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't make anything work. So I had to make this work. So it was a shift that I had to make this work, or I was going to be homeless. I don't know what was going to happen. So for me, it was like, I'm just going to make this work. If I have to have no sleep, for 24/7, like I will get it done. So it was, for me, it was just a shift in my attitude.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of people, they wait until they hit those moments to kind of do this kind of stuff, to make sure that they work hard and do things like that. So for anybody right now that that may have the life, their easy life, what would you tell them about hard work and making sure that they do the work, so that way, if they ever hit that moment, that they prepared for it?
Yeah, I would say it is really hard. If you're living at home, or you have a cushy job or whatever, and life is easy for you, it's hard to mentally really understand what it's like to hit rock bottom, because you've never been there before. You don't really know what it's like to experience until you experience it. And I don't wish people to hit rock bottom, but sometimes it's what you need, So I would say to learn hard work. Like if you live at home, or you got it easy, and you really want to level up and excel, I would say get around people that are already doing that. Get around somebody that hit rock bottom, so that there are a lot of times in life you want to do what you aspire to do, all these things that you love to do, but really, if you got around people and found out all the things that you don't want, that's sometimes more motivating than things that you do want. All right, so if you see somebody with a Lamborghini or this nice house, you're like, wow, I would love to have that. But, that's a want. But if you talk to somebody and really get an understanding that just absolutely hit rock bottom, they went through all this garbage, you're like, I don't want that. I need to not have that. Like, this want is cool, but like, I need to not have that. So I would say get around people that are already hard workers and have already made something of themselves, or even just in the process, but they have some success, but have had hard times, so that you can realize what you don't want.
Yeah. One of my favorite quote that we've had from a guest from the show is, I asked him, what is the thing that you wish you learned earlier? And his response was, I wish I have gone broke sooner. And I was like, wow, that's
actually really good.
really, really good.
Yeah, wow.
Because a lot of people, they try to avoid hardship. They try to avoid all the other stuff. And like, they are stuck where they are at because they are not willing to take risk. But the biggest successful people that I've made it is like they embrace this kind of thinking. They embrace like, okay, I can do hard things. Like it doesn't matter if I go broke. I know what I'm capable of doing, and I'm going to be doing that and making it happen.
Right.
But that was an incredible like saying that I was not expecting from him at all. So now that you've joined Prosper Firm, talk to me a little bit about, like, it's been like what, 6 years since?
So yeah, he's my business partner started Prosper Firm about 6 years ago. I've been on board for about 4 years now.
4 years, okay.
Roughly.
What is the biggest lessons that you've learned so far in working with Prosper Firm?
Yeah, great question. I would say the biggest thing that I've learned so far was how to appreciate failure, and how to really genuinely truly care about helping people. That's one of the things that I think really gained the reputation of our business, was the integrity of how we actually care about people. Sometimes there's deals that we have taken no commission off of. Don't recommend that. When you're in a business, you want to be in business to make money. But sometimes that's what that person needed, or we might have fell behind. We might have made a mistake. We either cut commission, or sometimes we just completely cleared it out because that person didn't have enough money to close on the deal. But if I took away my commission, they could close on the deal and they got the house. I've only done that like a couple times, but I don't recommend it. But one of the things that I've learned so much is to really value reputation, and being true stewards of people and taking care of people, because that's one of the most important things in many businesses, especially our business, is if you take care of somebody and you do good for them, they're going to tell other people about you, and that's just ultimately going to come back and harvest to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So as the chief lending officer and partner of Prosper Firm, what is your day-to-day look like? What do you do for the business?
Yeah, so for a while, my day-to-day was and still is, fielding sales calls, pricing out deals, running the end-to-end process from start to finish, from application to close. So I've been doing that for a good while, and then we started to build up a team, and that's shifting now. So it's coming into training and helping these guys, and just basically helping them do what I do, but for themselves. And then just now implementing different systems to make things automate, because we're getting a lot of business in and we have a bigger team now, so we're trying to make things easier. But a good bulk of my day is still being hands-on inside loans themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this: why, since you have both experience in the banking world and also obviously in the financing world with lending and stuff like that as well, why do you think banks say no to deals that hard money lenders will fund the same week? Can you break that down for us, for someone who's been rejected and doesn't understand why?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of banks just don't even do the kind of loans that we do. Fix and flip loans, and some do DSCR loans, but most banks don't even do fix and flip. So like the renovation style loans, they don't even touch them. And when it comes to banks, they are just more heavily regulated than private money. Right? Private money is either coming from an individual, a small group of individuals, or just a private institution that doesn't fall under the regular regulations that big banks fall under. So banks are really, regulated by the government, where they have to follow all these rules, and they can lend on this, they can't lend on that. They got all these extra guidelines if you want to go through them, versus the private side, the commercial side, it's a lot less regulated because it's private money, and it's just a lot easier to fund the deals.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've managed millions in closed loans. What is the one thing do you believe that kills more deals than anything else that borrowers could easily fix?
I would say it's really understanding your numbers in the deal itself. Like whether you're buying a property to renovate, are you going to make profit on that property? If it's a rental property, is it going to cash flow? Because if it doesn't cash flow, then you don't have a loan. And I think people don't realize sometimes you don't necessarily need a lot of capital, but I think some people underestimate that too much, where they think they don't need that much, but in certain deals they do. And they're kind of just spread themselves too thin, and it eliminates their ability to get deals done and to scale a lot faster.
Yeah, for sure. What shortcuts or mindset shift would have saved you years in this industry that you had to learn the hard way?
Man, I would say really, really understanding the ability to find the right deals for people. In the beginning, I really didn't understand, and this is all a learning process, right? I didn't really understand the types of programs that we had for people. And now we have access to thousands of different lenders, thousands of different programs. And, I was doing loans for people that I thought were good, but what I know now today was way better. I could get these people way better deals, but I just didn't know what was accessible back then. So I would say the knowledge of what we do, I wish I would have really honed in on that, because then I would have been able to help more people and give the best solution that there was in the marketplace.
Yeah. How many people have you guys helped so far with Prosper Firm?
Total, and since inception?
Yeah.
Thousands. We usually work with we close, anywhere from 100, 200 units a year, and we've been in been in business now for what, six-ish years. So yeah, some years are obviously bigger, some years are slower, but yeah, definitely over 1,000 people, I would say.
That's incredible.
For sure, yeah.
Congratulations,
Thanks,
guys.
man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's the biggest misconception that you think that investors have around hard money lending, and what's the real truth?
I think people think that, and this comes to both aspects of capital, where yes, you need to have some capital, but also there's a lot of private lending out there where they require 20, 25% down, where that's just not the case. A lot of loans that we do, we can do 10% down and provide 100% of the financing, and we do it for less fees than most of these lenders do. That most of these lenders have for their clients. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question, or what was it?
What's the real truth about like that biggest misconception that they have?
Okay, yeah. So I definitely, people think that you need a lot more. You need a lot more money than you think for down payment, but really you can come in a lot less. That's probably the biggest thing I would say.
Yeah, for sure. What about credit? A lot of people say that, okay, I need the perfect credit to be able to get a real estate loan. Is that true or false, and why?
Yeah, not necessarily true. Obviously, the better credit you have, the better terms you're going to get because that shows you have good payment history and good reliability. But you can get a loan with lower credit. Sometimes your terms might not be as good. There might be a little bit more money down. Might have a higher rate, maybe a little bit higher in fees. But if it's a good deal and you have just enough like decent credit and it makes sense for you, then we can still absolutely get that done. But what I tell people sometimes is either A, I can get you with a credit repair expert. He can fix this, and then here's your terms now. But if you got to this credit score, here's your terms. So you can go the credit repair route or finding a credit partner. Whether that's mom, dad, sister, or just a partner that you want to work with on the flip loans. If they have better credit, you can use them as a guarantor, but the entire LLC can still be the borrower. So therefore, you still have ownership in that property, but somebody else is taking on that credit guarantee, right? But it's not necessary. You don't necessarily have to have the most perfect credit to get financing.
Yeah. What is a good credit score to get financing? And if you do, second part of that question, if you have a terrible credit score, what are some of the things that you can do to improve your credit score?
Ideal credit score is usually anything above 700. A good credit score to still get funding is 660. You can still technically get funding with 0 credit score. But again, you're going to have a lot more money into the deal. And then some things that you can do to increase your credit. There's a couple of major things that really impact your credit. It's having charge-offs, collections, over 30-day late payments on mortgages and auto loans, and then high credit card balances. Ideally, if you're below a 10% utilization on your credit card balances, that's kind of where you want to stay. But if you're over like 30%, 50%, and your balance to your limit ratio is a lot higher, that's really going to impact your score. So you can do some of those things on your own, but there are certain things that like a credit repair expert can like get removed from your credit. I won't speak for them, but sometimes working with somebody that's an expert in that field can absolutely help you boost your score like crazy.
Absolutely. What would you tell those people that are completely against getting credit cards and utilizing it to grow their business?
I would say be smart. Be very smart about it because credit card debt is very, very high in this country, and you don't want to be ignorant about using credit cards. So what I say is if you're going to pay for it with cash, just pay for it with a credit card and then pay that off immediately. Now that may or may not, help or hurt your score, but over the long run, by having that credit history, it's going to help you. But if you, if you pay for it, on a credit card, but then you don't pay the balance off or you don't make payments, then that's going to rack up. You're going to start getting charged high interest, and that can really, really mess up your life and get you into a lot of debt. So I would just say, get credit cards, start small, and just be very diligent about knowing how to spend it. And if you're going to spend something on that credit card, just pay it off or pay it down to a really low balance and keep that low balance.
Yeah. That's great advice. What do people completely misunderstand about interest rate and the investor lending world, and what would they should be focused on instead?
I would say if we're talking about renovation loans specifically, sometimes the interest rate, it can matter, but it also doesn't necessarily. In the renovation loan world, they are a little bit higher rates just because they're interest only loans. They're meant for a really short term, 3-6 months. Really, when I look at because I used to be an investor myself and flip houses. So the interest rate goes into your cost and into your holding cost for your monthly payments. But what matters at the end of the day is how much money are you making on this deal? If your rate's 10, 11, 12, 13%, yeah, that can be a little high even for a short amount of time. But after you're done, are you going to be making 50 grand, 60 grand, $100,000? Then that interest rate really doesn't matter, right? Because your profit is what you're going for.
Yeah.
But if that interest rate cuts into your cost, your closing cost, your holding cost, and the entire proceeds of that deal, then that's something to factor in. But just start with the end in mind. What's the end goal here? And does this little bit higher interest rate matter, or does it just help me get to where I want to go, which is profit?
Yeah, absolutely. You just mentioned fix and flip. Can you walk us through what a first time fix and flip borrower actually needs to get a deal done? Is it like ARV, LTV, credit, experience? Can you break all of it down simply?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with experienced investors that have done over 1,000 doors, and we work with somebody that's brand new that's never done any kind of real estate investing whatsoever. So what's needed is honestly the biggest things that we focus on is the numbers of the property. So most of what we do is we'll lend up to 75% of the after repair value. So for example, these aren't like numbers that we'd probably use, but just for example, if after renovation the property was worth 100K, like we can lend up to $75,000 on that property. So most investors, what I recommend is if you can stay between 50% and 65% of the ARV, so your cost versus your after repair value, those are usually pretty good numbers because that gives you some buffer of any extra cost that might come up, and usually will still allow you to profit. So up to 75% of the ARV is where you want to stay, and if you're above that, then you're probably not really looking at profiting on that project, and it's probably not a good deal. So understanding the numbers and having the right after repair value versus your cost is very important. The second thing is credit. Obviously, like we talked about before, you want to have good credit because you're going to get better terms, which will make your cost lower, which will make you more profit. So having a good credit score is really good to have. Experience, again, not so much. If you have experience, you have better terms. But again, we work with first-time investors. And then the third thing I would say is capital. Understanding how much capital you need to close on the loan, and then understanding how much capital you need, until you're done renovating, holding that loan, and then selling the property.
Yeah. What's a real deal that you've seen get funded that most bank would never touch? Mm-hmm. And why did that work?
Most banks, they don't even touch fix and flip loans. But just for one example is just, like a DSCR loan, where I had a bank was looking at doing a DSCR loan. And this is just essentially for a rental property. So the, client or my client owns a property that has a tenant in it, single family house, he's the landlord. And they wanted to look at more than just that property, like what he had globally with his tax returns and other properties. And they looked at him at a global scale and said, no, we don't want to lend to you on this one home because of all this stuff you have going on over here. But whenever we're doing one loan on one property, we don't care about your other properties. We want to know, does this asset cash flow? Does this asset work? And if it works, we can fund it.
Yeah, love that. What do you see are the top mistakes that new fix and flip investors make when they approach a lender for the first time, and how should they avoid that?
I would say not understanding their numbers. They really, I think it's really important to get a mentor in this industry, or just do your research. Understand what fix and flip loans are like first before approaching a lender, because then when they start throwing, I talk on the phone with people and I talk really fast and I go through things because I do this every day and I forget that, this person has never done this before. I need to slow down, dial it back. So I would say, get a little bit educated first. Google, YouTube, you can use AI, and you can really understand what makes a good deal a good deal. That's one of the most important things I'd say before you go to a lender, because then as you come to a lender like us, you really already can understand what a good deal actually is. And then when you start pricing things out, things get a little bit more real. You can, look at a deal and say, does this make sense for me?
Yeah. Now let's flip it. If someone only had 30 minutes to prepare before calling a hard money lender about a fix and flip deal, what should they have ready?
I would say they need to know what their credit score is. So you can go to apps like Credit Karma or like your credit card app. Those aren't your real scores. That's them collecting your data and guessing what your score is. So don't look at that as gospel, because it's sometimes not exactly your score. Because people call me and say, well, Credit Karma says that it's this. It's not your actual credit report, so it's not your actual score. It's just taking an estimate. So I would say get an understanding of what your estimated credit score is. One of the other biggest things is renovation. If you can know how much renovation that property is going to cost, that'll really allow me to assess the deal for you, whether it's good or not. Because I can't really look at a renovation deal unless I know what the renovation costs are. And then the third thing is understanding where their capital is coming from. Where's the money coming at from the cost to close on the loan? And then where are your renovation costs come from? Because, with pretty much every hard money lender out there in the private space, you have to fund the deal up front. You have to fund the reno up front, and then you get reimbursed. They're called draws. So if you have a $30,000 budget, you start doing some work on the property and the renovation, and then we start reimbursing you that money back. So where are those funds coming from? A lot of people, what they do is they buy material on a credit card, and then they pay their contractors or laborers with cash, because most contractors want cash.
Yeah.
So understanding where your capital is coming from to close the loan and to fund the rehab.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple questions ago, you mentioned DSCR loan. So DSCR loan, can you explain it like I've never heard it before? Like, what is it? How does it work? And why do investors love it?
I would say DSCR loan, I used to work for a bank a long time ago, and I had somebody explain it to me 3 times, and I still didn't get it. I was like, after learning it, I'm like, this is the most simple thing ever. So DSCR just stands for debt service coverage ratio. Almost kind of just throw that out of your mind and think of it this way. What we're looking for is we're looking for the property to cash flow. That's what a DSCR loan is based off of, is the cash flow of the asset. Okay. So if you have a $1,000 mortgage payment, including your payment to the lender, your property taxes, your home insurance, and then you have a $1,000 lease for a tenant, that is break even.
1-to-1.
It's 1-to-1. You're breaking even, right? If you have a $1,000 mortgage payment and a lease for $1,250, your ratio is 1.25, right? So that means you're making more money than you're spending. So therefore, that property is cash flowing. So when someone says DSCR, they're asking you, what are your DSCR ratios? Like, what's the qualification for DSCR? And it's my answer to that is usually 1-to-1 or 1.25. Usually when you're 1.25 and above, you get better rates. But as long as the property is cash flowing at a 1-to-1, or as long as it's breaking even at a 1-to-1, ideally cash flowing, that's a good asset to lend on.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody should run their business like that anyway. Like, to ensure that, they have a 1-to-1 DSCR ratio.
Right.
If you do not have that, that means the business is dying.
Yeah, exactly.
That means you're going to be out of business
Yeah.
very soon. So, that's a very important score if you're thinking about going to get a loan and doing all the other stuff, even if it's not a DSCR loan.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So who's the perfect candidate for a DSCR loan, and who should not be using one?
I would say the perfect person is honestly a lot of real estate investors, because what they don't like to do is put their, as they're growing and scaling and buying rentals, they don't want to put that asset in their individual name. They want to put it in an LLC. So they'll have an entity, mostly LLC, sometimes in corporations, but 99% of the times we do loans for LLCs. One of the main reasons is, liability. Liability is on the LLC, not you as an individual. And then the second thing is it doesn't show up on your personal credit report. So if you come to me once a month and I do a loan for you every single month, none of that is going to show up on your personal credit. So if you want to go get a car or you want to go buy a house for yourself, you don't have all this, laundry list of houses that's showing up on your personal credit. You just have what's ever on your personal credit. And then I would say really if you're in the real estate industry and you have rentals, you're pretty much going to want to do a DSCR loan. There's probably very few people that don't benefit from a DSCR loan. I'd say the only people that don't really need DSCR loans are your flippers. People that just want to be in and out. They want the cash and they want to keep flipping. But if you're a real estate investor and you're trying to scale your portfolio, then DSCR loans are some of the best products to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you give us a real story of a client who used a DSCR? A real client will use a DSCR loan to unlock something that they could not do in any other way.
Yeah, I think of a couple guys, but just recently, we funded a DSCR loan, and this guy got, really good cash out on it because he had a low loan amount, and his appraisal came back really well. So we can do a DSCR loan as a purchase. We can do it as just a regular refi, and then we can do it as a cash out, meaning you can pull cash out of that property and then go buy other properties. Or you can, go buy a car. Don't recommend that, but, probably go buy some more properties. So this guy was able to pull out like 120 grand in cash, and then he used that to flip his next project, made like 250 on that project, and then just started the ripple effect of buying more properties and just scaling his portfolio.
That's incredible. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love those three examples that you just shared. I've never really thought about that before. That's cool.
Yep.
So let's move into ground construction now. Ground construction financing. So who is ground up construction financing actually built for, and why are small to mid-size developers the perfect fit?
Two people you really see get into ground up are usually contractors, and then just your regular fix and flippers. The contractors get into ground up construction a lot of time because they're doing the work for these people, for the actual owners of the property, and they see how much money it's generating, and they're like, man, I should do this myself. I'm already doing the work, and I'm getting paid, 1/20, a tenth of what the actual owner of this land is getting. So a lot of times GCs, general contractors, become actual owners and get those kind of loans. And then your fix and flippers. There's a lot of money in ground up construction if you do it right. So your fix and flippers are the people that get into it as well.
Yeah. Can you walk us through this step by step? What does the process look like actually from day one of a ground up deal to the day that the loan closes?
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously you want to, find a piece of land, and then run your numbers of what the actual costs are going to be. So if you're not a contractor yourself, get a licensed general contractor, and make sure that your costs are actually going to produce a value at the end. If you spend $500,000 on the land and it's a $500,000 vertical construction, and you're going to be able to sell it for $2 million, not a bad. Not bad numbers.
Yep.
So you really want to make sure. Same thing with the flipping, except there's an existing structure. Now there's just dirt. So you want to make sure everything that you're going to construct is going to have that same, if not better, end result. So make sure your numbers are correct. Then you usually work with the designer, architect, or just usually GCs. They kind of just draw like a proposed floor plan. Then they start working on permits if permits are needed. Usually permits are needed, and then they start the loan process. Right, so you have a little bit of a pre-dev work, and then you have like your loan process. And the loan process is very similar to ground up construction as like a fix and flip. We still have to take general applications, look at your experience, or look at your contractor's experience. Get the budget, the scope of work of what it actually looks like. Then we order an appraisal, make sure that estimated after repair value is going to be sufficient versus your cost, but it's pretty standard. Loan application, go through underwriting, review entity docs, get the appraisal done, make sure the scope of work and budget is sufficient, and then close.
I love that. What do you see are the common mistakes that small developers make when they're approaching construction financing?
Not picking the right location. Location is huge. Like St. Pete right now is getting built back up, right? So like that hurricane, obviously, hit down here, and it just destroyed like the entire city, right? So like a lot of values drop down because lenders don't want to lend here. It's very volatile, uncertain. So values are dropping. People don't want to buy. So therefore, whenever you go to buy a house, or you have the house next to you, it's your value drops because that value just dropped. But now, a couple years post hurricane, now it's getting built back up. Now everything is, like 3-4 years from now, those new construction homes that are like basically hurricane proof, that the value of that is going to be so astronomical that some people over the past couple of years, or even now, they're picking up properties for pennies on the dollar. Mm-hmm. And as long as they can hold it for, a year, 2 years or whatever, that value is going to be, that's like buying a house in 2019. And your value shoots up like $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 over the next year because of the way. So that's what I think is happening here in St. Pete, just in general, but like all around Florida. And there's so many different areas of the country, but location is super important. And then the second thing is really getting, if you're not a GC yourself, a general contractor, getting the right general contractor, getting somebody that you trust. And that's not going to give you false expectations, because somebody can come in and try to win a bid by saying, oh, I'll do it for this much cheaper. But in reality, they're not that good and it's going to be more expensive. So your expectations are just shot. So location and really getting the right team in place.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never heard of portfolio loans. Mm-hmm. Can you share with me what are they, and why should someone managing 5, 10, or 20 unit care?
Portfolio loans are incredible. They are really good for your investors that want to bundle some of their rentals into one loan versus managing, let's say if you have 10 different properties and you want to bundle them together into one loan, you can do that and have one singular loan versus having, maybe 10 different lenders or like 6 different lenders on 10 different properties. So now you're managing payments and taxes to 10 different locations of lenders versus just bundling them into one and dealing with one lender. Right. So they're really good for that. There's some downsides to it. Like if you want to sell a property off, sometimes there's a fee that's associated. But if you're gonna hold on to these properties, a lot of times it's beneficial to put them into a portfolio. Sometimes it's not. But our portfolio loans are phenomenal rates. I have a guy back home, from Pittsburgh that he has a lot of properties, and we do portfolio loans for him. And he bunches them into like 5 or 6. He does them each at a time because he likes to, just have them separate. That's the way that he likes to run it. Versus doing individual ones for every single property that he owns. He just takes small pockets and puts them into one. And they're honestly some of the best terms out there on the marketplace.
That's a very great idea. That's awesome. That's really cool. So if someone start with one rental today and wants to reach 50 units, what does the financing roadmap actually look like for them?
I would say if I'm, working with a brand new investor, they have one unit or they're just getting started, I would say for the most part, focus on flipping first. Get profit in the door, because if you're gonna just start with a DSCR loan to buy a rental property, then usually DSCR loans, if you're just gonna purchase a duplex or whatever, it's usually a lot more money out of pocket. So unless you have a lot of capital, I'd probably start with flipping. It's lower money down, and then there's a huge potential for a lot more profit. If you flip a property, then you make 200 grand, then you can just go buy 2 more at the same time. And then you make 150 on this one, 150 on that one. Then you can just start, then you can get a team in place. You can start scaling. So I'd say start flipping until you have enough capital that you can just start getting rentals left and right. But I would also, like, if you have enough equity in a home, I would not flip it and sell it, but flip it and cash out refi. So if you have a property that you have a lot of equity on, let's just say, it's a $100,000 cost, but the value is $400K, you can pull out a ton of money from that property, hold it as a rental, make cash flow on that property from the tenant, go use that capital that you pulled out from the cash out refi, buy the next property. It's the burst strategy. Yeah. You buy it, you renovate it, you rent it out, you refinance, rent it out, and repeat. That's one of the best ways to do it. And then eventually you get to a point where you have a lot of capital, you can just start buying properties left and right. But I would say flipping or the burst strategy, flipping it but holding on to it, it's one of the best ways to really scale.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that Prosper Firm has a bunch of different umbrellas and the different people that they serve. Can you share a little bit about some of the different services that you guys provide?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so mainly I work a lot in the real estate financing space. And then we have business financing, so we can fund SBA loans, different kinds of business loans. We work with business, traditional business owners we can do accounts receivable, so we can work off of their invoices, where we can, capital inject their business while they're waiting for payments from their customers. And then I would say probably the other thing is private equity. So we're working pretty heavily with, different private equity offices right now that are, funding different tech companies or just different projects where a lot of people aren't really doing equity right now. People are looking for equity financing, and just at a global scheme, a lot of private offices or family offices, they don't really like to do it because it's still a little risky, but we have a couple of places that are heavily investing into equity projects right now, which a lot of business owners or tech founders need. So those are probably some of our biggest funding sources that are different service lines that we work with.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that you can do SBA financing. Are those typically like 504 loans or 7A?
Yeah, the 504 is 7A. I honestly, if you need SBAs through us, you can contact. You can go to our website. You can contact me. But I'm gonna pass you right off to another guy on our team who is an SBA expert. We've kind of just empowered him to run the business financing. His name's Patrick, and I just punt right over to him. He's down here as well, but we can do SBA loans as well.
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun with SBA loans in my past in financing world.
Yeah, they are fun.
Back in all the different details and things that you need to do to get an SBA 504 loan done. Good times.
Yeah,
good times.
A lot of paperwork.
Oh yeah. By the time that I left, I think we had 60 loans.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously some of them come and go and doing all of the other stuff, but revolving 60 plus loans that were SBA finance. Mm-hmm. And I think we've done a ton of them, thousands of them. But Yeah, those were fun times.
Yeah, it's a great source for business owners. It's a great place to fund, but they take a lot of work and sometimes take a little bit of time. But it's a great place for financing for business owners.
Yeah, my favorite part was when you get audited with all of these, like, and now you have to pull stacks of
Yeah.
papers, and obviously making sure that you get all of that
Yeah.
ready and situated as well. But those were fun times. I actually miss it.
Yeah, that's rough.
So if someone watching this and they want to get funded, they want to work with Prosper Firm or even just Speak Your Brand, how can they get a hold of you and where do they find you?
Yeah, you can find us. You can go right to our website, www.prosperfirm.com, or you can find me on Instagram. It's Hard Money Mike.
Hard Money Mike, let's go.
It's PGH after. So Hard Money Mike PGH on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not Mike Evans, guys. Do not go and kind of search him and just kind of say, hey, Mike Evans, who plays for the Bucks. Yeah, incredible. One thing I typically like to ask people, and if you have it, great. If not, all good. But a gift for people. Maybe you have like a checklist or like something that could be valuable for somebody that wants to get started with their loans or that wants to learn the A to Z about how they can get prepared to get funded. Do you have anything like that you can share, or like maybe it's a consultation with you? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're obviously very busy, but we're never too busy to help and educate somebody and to help their business grow. So they can call us. They can find my number right on the website, and they can call me anytime. If I'm busy, then we have plenty of really, really good guys and girls on our teams, on our team that can walk through, just basic scenario of a deal and just really help educate somebody to find that next deal. And if they don't find a deal right now, at least we can empower you to learn and do what you need to do. You can go and find all this stuff out by yourself, but if you call us and we talk for 30 minutes, we're absolutely happy to answer any questions and to help you in any way we possibly can.
Absolutely. So we are at the end of the talk show, and there is like 5 or 6 questions I always ask people.
Okay.
So the first one I have for you is like, what's your $1 million advice?
Wow. My $1 million advice is, I would say, I think it goes back to some of the things that I was talking about earlier, and this applies to so many different businesses. This can really apply to anything, but find people that are in life where you want to be. If you want to be a millionaire, go find a millionaire. Go talk to them. If you want to be an executive chef at an XYZ restaurant, do everything you can to be around the people that you need to be around to learn what you need to learn. So really it's in my opinion, as young as you possibly can, network as much as possible. Your network will equal your net worth.
Boom. Well, very well said. If you lost everything today, how would you rebuild?
Oof. I would, if it was a different industry or even the same industry, I would, number one, find what's the best industry for me to be in to make the most amount of money with the least amount of education. I forget one of those, what's the show, like the Hidden Billionaire or whatever it is, Secret Billionaire.
Yeah.
And they
like
put them in a town and they have to make $1 million in 30 days. And I haven't seen a ton of the show, but I've seen some clips of it, and they try to find what's the best source of revenue. How can I make the most amount of money the fastest? So I would say I would definitely find the best industry to make the most amount of money the fastest. And then when I have that capital, then I can really diversify. If I want to go into, talk shows, or if I want to go in the different kinds of lending, or I want to start this kind of a business, now I have the capital to be able to go do what I actually want to do in life. But I would find, a way to make a ton of money and then go pursue my actual dream that's going to, pursue my career.
That's a killer advice right there. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That goes for even like for business that might be struggling right now too. To if they need a quick cash injection, try to find like the route that has the least resistance.
Right.
Make a bunch of money and then like stabilize things again and just kind of go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Instead of try to kind of keep everything going the way that the same way that they were happening before. So
Exactly.
that is a huge advice right there. So what was the hardest lesson that shaped who you are today?
Man, I would say failure. I think too early on, I was so afraid to fail, and was down in the dumps of failure, and just having the right mindset of failure. Because looking back on it today, I think failure is one of the things that you not only have to go through, but I wish I would have went through more failure than I did. If I would have failed a lot faster, I would have failed forward quicker. I would have gained the success that I aspired to have a lot faster. And I was so afraid of it. I was so afraid to talk to people. I was so afraid to go do or start something new. And looking back on it, I wish I would have made 10 times the amount of mistakes that I made, because I probably would have been in life where I wanted to be a lot faster.
Boom. Mic drop moment. Let's go. Mic drop moment.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, with Mike Evans. That's why we should start a podcast that says like
that.
mic drop.
I'm gonna steal that in some way.
Yeah, mic drop moments.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you wish that you knew or understood earlier?
I wish I knew how to get around the right people and to know what I wanted to do in life quicker. Your network and your passion is really just shapes who you are. Who you hang around with is who you get ideas from. It's like osmosis. You become like the people that you're around. And just really understanding my passion in life, I just didn't learn that until later on. I didn't realize the power of that until too late in life. But thankfully, I'm young enough to to understand it now.
Yeah, absolutely. What is one book or one person or one resource that has made the biggest difference for you?
I got 3 honorable mentions. Honorable mention number 1 is The Slight Edge. The very first book that I read by one of my mentors when I was 19 years old. I hate reading. Absolutely hate it. I used to pay one of my friends, Tyler, in high school to do my book reports for me because I don't like reading for pleasure. It just I was like, this is a waste of time. I'd rather go do something else. But I learned that reading later on, like reading about success and reading about things that will help you, is so beneficial. It's one of the most peaceful things that you can do. And one of the most beneficial things you can do. So he handed me this book called The Slight Edge. And he was like, do you like reading? And like, me trying to impress him I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. And I got in my car and I looked at it. I was driving a gray beat up, like 04 Honda Civic. And I was like, I have no desire to read this book. I was like, I'm not reading this book. Absolutely not. And then I think I just didn't read it for like 2 weeks. And just being around them more, again, just being around successful people, being around people that have good positive attitude. I was like, I don't know, man, maybe I should read this book. And I read that book in like a couple of days. So Slight Edge, phenomenal book. I would say the second honorable mention, Magic of Thinking Big. I won't go too much on it, but it just really expands your dream in your mind. Third one, a little bit more mechanics to it, but it's called The Master Key to Riches. The number 1 book I would say that was a huge resource for me is a book that a lot of people know. It's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Everybody in real estate and their mamas, and I've read that book.
Yeah, everybody knows that book. But you can read that book 1,000 times, or you can look at the cover and you can really understand the true concept of that book. And I recommend everybody to read it and read it again and read it again, read it again until you get it and it just becomes a part of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great share. Love. I've never heard of the first 2. Obviously, the third one, very big in the real estate world as well. So thank you for that share.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like the second one too, so I'm probably going to be looking
Great book.
Into that, like the magic of thinking bigger. Mm-hmm. Not that I don't think big already, but I can use a little
There's
bit
always more.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you could go back to the start, what advice would you have given to your 19 years old self?
Wow, man, that's so long ago. I would honestly, if I could go back and say, hey, dude, listen up. I would say really taking more time to focus on myself. I'm a people pleaser. I like to, I'm just very much like, I like to make sure other people are comfortable. I think that I wasn't, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but I wasn't as selfish enough as I should have been early on. If I was a little bit more selfish in my career or just in my faith, then I think I personally would have just excelled to a lot higher of a level faster. Especially just, focusing on career instead of just dating girls and just having fun. I would have just told myself, hey, if you just grind for, good 4-5 years, you can live the rest of your life the way that you want to. And then I would tell myself if, outside of, the career, I was saved when I was 19 years old. I had really good mentors that was around me that helped me grow in my Christian faith. I wish I could go back and tell myself to, if you just have a better relationship with God, a lot of these things that will happen to you later in life will be, a lot easier to deal with. I'm getting a little
emotional.
Yeah, a little bit, because I see, everything that I went through, and I'm like, man, if I was just in lockstep with God ever since I was younger, then that would have been so much easier to go through, because I was just relying more on myself and my own thoughts, my own intuition, and my own, desires of this world. And if I leaned more on Him, man, life would have been just a lot more blissful, a lot faster.
Yeah. And going through the tough seasons too, what I've learned from dealing with some of this stuff too is maybe it's like the time that God is teaching you on how to rely on Him and trust in Him, have faith in Him, so that way He can help you achieve the big things that that He set for you in the future. Like literally growing up, your partner, Brendan, earlier, we were talking about Jeremiah 29:11. Growing up, that was my favorite verse.
Yeah.
Hey, for I know the thoughts, and I've even learned it in Spanish. Porque yo sé los pensamientos que tengo sobre vosotros, pensamientos de paz y no de mal, para daros el fin que esperáis, which is like, hey.
What you said.
Yeah, what I said. Should I do it in Chinese too? No, I'm joking.
Spit it all out.
But this is something that I truly kind of thought of, but never really thought about all the hardships that can come with that for you to get that end that God has in store for you. But sometimes the hardest moment, the lowest moments that you are dealing with are the things that is the prerequisite, or the thing that helping you build the foundations to achieve the big things. So looking back, as you said, all the hard times that you faced is what needed to be done for you to be where you are at today.
Yeah, God has a funny sense of humor of building your character. But, when you look back on it, you sometimes think, we're even thankful that thank God that I went through that, because I think what He was doing is shaping me into who I was a year later because of that. And now where I'm at today, I think He let that, all that stuff that happened to me a few years ago, I think He let that happen because He's like, dude, just get through this season, because I'm bringing you up to this, and I'm building your character, and I'm building you to who you are, but I'm letting you go through this. That's like the story of Job. He's like, I'm letting this happen to you, but you just got to keep your faith in me. And that's what it's hard to hang on to in the moment, because, you feel it. It's a physical and mental battle, but you have to constantly tell yourself, and you have to keep that faith. And if you keep that faith, everything's going to work out.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the second time you've mentioned Job, and every single time you say that, it takes me back. It takes me back. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently too, because growing up, when my parents would not let me go play with the kids in their neighborhood, I told them to change my name to Job. To Job. And they would call me Job, because we were playing around my house.
Yeah.
And around those times, I was actually reading Job in the Bible. And I don't know why I picked Job, the guy that kind of went through all of the struggles.
Right.
But every time I go through hard times, I think back into those stories from the Bible about Job, about losing everything. But still, through the thick of it, had faith and, still trusted God, and still kind of go through all of that. So, I'm probably going to start reading that book again. So
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that again. So I think that's probably going to be one of my new reads, next few days.
Yeah,
So
it's a good book.
Yeah, very, very much so. Something else that you mentioned earlier, that grinding is not a lifestyle, it's a season. So
yes,
want to make sure that you guys know that definitely grind, but don't make it your lifestyle.
Right.
It's a season.
Absolutely.
Man, Mike Evans, such a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for coming here and sharing incredible value.
Thank you.
I think you've made a huge difference for anybody that may now just starting their business and wants to learn about financing in the real estate world. So really appreciate you, and thank you for coming and sharing, man.
Appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we wrap up, anybody that is watching that wants to get, I think we have already shared it, but anybody that is watching that wants to get a hold of you and wants to learn more about, Prosper Firm and you specifically too, how can they do that?
Yeah, just like we talked about earlier, you can go to www.prosperfirm.com. You can call us and talk to me directly, or find me on Instagram at hardmoneymikepgh, and you can just send me a DM directly. They're open, so I'll get your message. That's probably the two best ways to contact me.
There you have it. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching this whole episode. Make sure to always like, share, and subscribe. Actually, subscribing would be amazing for me. That can help us support us to continue to, invite really great guests like this and coming and sharing some massive value. So thank you guys for watching and also for liking and subscribing. As usual, stay lit. Let's go, baby. That's so fire.